Hi, I'm Michelle and I do samples and make patterns for Lemon Lane. You might have seen some of my bags and pouches and purses on the shows on Create and Craft, and I'm going to show you now how to make them. I'm going to show you how to make the Synthea coin purse. It's really easy and this is a really friendly beginner pattern. In your patterns, you get all the pieces already printed. You just cut them out and you'll also get a couple of zipper tab sizes as well. And then you just need to print off. Sorry, go back. Let's go back to that bit if you don't mind, because I'd left them over there. I was trying to look round for them. Right, so I'll start again. It'd be easy, won't it? This is a Synthea coin purse. It's a lovely little project. It's a nice, beginner-friendly little pattern. And when you get your patterns at home, all you just need to do is cut them out. They're already printed for you. So you've got your purse. You've got two sizes of zip. I'm using a number 5 because that's my preference. I'm also using the beautiful Synthea fabric and also the blush for the lining, which has got like a lovely little texture. I love this. And you'll also need to print off your Synthea coin purse pattern instructions. They've got photographs, step by step, really easy to follow. But if you're a visual learner and you just want that a little bit more, then with this tutorial is perfect. So to make this little purse, we're going to, first of all, we need to attach our foam to our fabric, and we've also attached our woven interfacing, and this just gives a lovely structure to the purse. So we're going to sew around the edge with a bigger stitch just to baste it in place. So I put a handmade label on mine because I really like them. We do sell some labels here that you can sew on, and also if this is a gift, it'd be nice to put a washing label in as well, because you could wash this purse. So just doing a longer stitch, attaching my foam to the little purse. Now this has got curves, and they're not massive curves, but it's harder than sewing straight lines, put it that way. But it's quite easy once you know how. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So first of all, like I said, just get this attached, this foam attached. If the foam shifts a little bit, don't worry about it. You can just trim it down. Once it's been clipped, it shouldn't have shifted too much. And I'm just going to chop off my extra threads. And I think we're good to go there. So now we're going to move on to our zip. And on your pattern, you've got little markings on the pattern to show you where to place your zipper onto the front of the pouch. So I've already added one of my zipper tabs on my number 5 zip. So I'm going to show you how I like to add the tabs. So this has been ironed in half, and it's been folded again into the middle, and then folded over again, and then a good press, and that gives you those nice crisp edges. So the first seam, first crease here, I'm going to sew in just to attach it to my zip, and I just feel like it makes it that little bit more secure. I'm going to put my stitch back down to 2.5 and do a back stitch. And although these zips look metal, they're not. You won't be able to go over them like that if they're metal. But still wise to take care, isn't it? So now I'm going to fold it over to the back. And you can see that this looks really untidy at the moment. We've got the raw edge of the zip, we've got the raw edge of the fabric. just going to fold that folded piece over, and now all of a sudden it looks really tidy like it does at the other end. And we're going to stitch this now with a bit of a larger stitch, maybe 3.5. Whatever you like to do really, it's a bit more like personal preference. I'm going to line my edge of my foot to the edge of my zipper tab so that I'm sewing in a little bit. And that's important because you need to be able to make sure you catch the edge. If you're sewing right at the edge, you could miss it and then you've just got to unpick it and start all over again. So 9 times out of 10, or maybe more, you'll catch it and you haven't got a problem. So just taking my threads off, find my other scissors, and we're going to cut the ends off. Flush to the zip, just like I did the first one. There we are, get rid of my mess. And now with my zip, actually I've got my zip to the left. It depends whether you're left-handed, right-handed, how you want to do it. I'm right-handed, so I tend to put my zipper pull to the left. I'm going to flip it over and clip to my markings. If I've cut my zip a little bit longer than I thought I had, just make it central, which I have here actually, but it won't make much difference, it's fractional. We want to be even both ends really, don't we? So you want your zipper taut, but not tight. If it's baggy, it's going to look baggy when you finish, so just make sure it's taut enough. Put my stitch up and let's do a basting stitch. I'm going to do a reverse stitch as well, just to make sure that it stays in place, and I'm sewing along the edge of that zipper just so it won't move. This is a lovely quick project, especially if you're wanting that sewing fix and you haven't got a lot of time, to spare, you can get a quick project in. So now we're going to get our lining and we're going to line it up, sandwiching the zip. And put my stitch length back down to a regular stitch length. I'm going to do my seam allowance, about 1/4 inch, but to keep my stitches straight, I'm ignoring my needle and I'm just following the marking that is on my presser foot. That's it, out of the way. I'd have made it easier for myself if I just swung the fabric round and moved it, never mind. And right to the end. If you're selling your projects, these are nice quick projects to make to fill your counter up. Nice quick, don't use a lot of fabric. In fact, they're all great projects actually in the Bags and More if you're wanting to sell your bags or do little craft shows. And then I'm just going to put my stitch length up. I want my lining to one side, I want my zip over my lining. I want my seams facing towards the front of the purse, and I'm going to do my top stitch. Once again, to get a really nice top stitch, I'm ignoring my needle and I'm just following, there's a little marking on my presser foot and I'm following that to stitch along, not looking at my needle at all. Spin the purse round towards you with the presser foot up, get your zip out of the way. See, that was so much easier, wasn't it? and then to the end. And chop off our little extra threads. Then at home, you'll get your iron out and you give it a really good press. At this point, if you're putting a washing label in, you want to get your washing labels into place as well. And then we're going to take our back piece, line it up, flip it over, and make sure the edges are all lined up with the outer of the purse. So it's all going to be in the right position when you come to sewing it together. Going to, already on a larger stitch because we're just top stitched. So I'm just going to put my zip in place, sewing along the edge. My presser foot. I've got so many pairs of scissors. There we are. I'm new for trying to cut with curved embroidery scissors, it doesn't work. There we go. Threads away. So now, just check the front. Our purse, that's lovely. In the back, we've got a lining. So now we're wanting to put our other lining on. And the way to make sure you've got it right every time, so you don't need to think about it, is lining to lining, main fabrics together. And then to make sure that you're all perfect on the inside, you can see front to back. And then you know that you're stitching it all in the right place. So now, just going to lower our stitch length. Told you this was quick, didn't I? Quick project, this. It's such a useful one. Who doesn't want a coin purse? And you could even get more adventurous and put a little strap on your purse if you ride a bicycle. So you can stick it on your handlebars if you need a bit of money with you. Lots of things you can do. Don't be afraid to mix and match your patterns once you get used to it. So just moving the zipper out of the way. And then carrying on to the end. And we've got another bit of top stitching to do. So now we're going to have 3 pieces of fabric to one side. We're going to have the back piece to the other with all the seam allowances and raw edges facing towards the back piece. And we're going to top stitch. Along we go. Keep it as straight as you possibly can, because this is going to show. That's it. Got the zipper pull out of the way then, otherwise you can end up with a kink in your sewing line. So now we've got some lovely top stitching. If you're at home, get that iron out. You need to give it a really nice press. Press everything flat and make things easier in the end. And then you're going to put your 2 linings together. They're easy to line up because you've got curves. Put your curves together. You're going to have to leave a gap. So I'm going to draw that on because I forget. a lot. And then we're going to do the front and the back together. Clip those curves together. And as small a project as it is and as easy as it is, we're still not going to go all the way around in one fell swoop unless you want to. I prefer to do it this way. So I've matched up my little edges together, make sure they're perfect. Because it might be a little project, but it still needs to be spot on. I'm going to push the tabs towards the lining on both sides and make sure they're lined up. Because it will be noticeable if they're not. Put some more clips. And we're now going to sew around. So make sure I've got the right stitch length. So we're just going to stitch it as regular seam allowance and stitch length. And we're going to go around these curves now. To go around the curves and make it so that they're even, ignore your needle altogether and look at somewhere on your presser foot, somewhere that you can identify. I've got a couple of notches on mine, so I know exactly where this outer notch is, and I'm going to make sure that I line my purse all the way around the edge, all the way around the purse actually, with this notch until I get to my lining, because I'm going to make my lining with a bigger seam allowance because I want it to fit better. So now I've got a lovely curve going on my purse there. I've just got to make sure these are lined up. Yep. And then sew them. Back stitch so it don't come undone. Just check my work. Yes, they're in the perfect position. Happy with that. I'm going to do the other side now. Once again, I'm following that marking that's on my foot that I'm using. Find one on yours that you want to use and just make sure it stays to the outer edge of your purse. Follow it all the way around and you will find that you've got a perfect seam without any effort really. So now just make sure that these are lined up, which they are. Just going to sew that. And we're going to check that this one's lined up. And yes, it is. Happy with that. So now we're going to go around to doing the lining. Now, it might be easier for you to do 1/4 of an inch to those markings before you make it wider if you've not made many things before, and then go back in and do a wider lining. That would be easier. I'm just going to go for it. So I'm doing a 3/4 of an inch seam, and now I'm following a marking that's actually on the plate on my machine, and I'm going to make sure that my edge stays with this line here on the machine as it goes round, and I once again will have a perfect seam. Don't need to go fast. I'm not going to go fast actually because I want it to be perfect. And then I'm going to sew up as far as I can. And now it's time to turn to a diagonal because I need to go back to my 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to make it all fit perfectly. And then back stitch. So happy with that. And we're going to do, did you hear the relief in my voice then? And we're going to start off at the other side, doing our 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. Once again, the edge of my purse is going to follow this line on my machine. I'm going to take it as far as I can, and then we're going to go on a bit of a diagonal back over to meet up at our 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So it's all got to meet where it started off. But you can just do the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance if you want, and you'll still get a beautiful purse. This is just extra finishes if you so wish. So now I'll get the scissors, and I'm going to just cut a little diagonal just there. I need this piece leaving intact because I'm going to use that for when I've turned the purse through. I'm going to take my scissors and just cut the excess off. Same here. There we are, quite a bit there. And then want to cut this foam down. Forget these ends here, we're going to deal with them in a moment. Just trim this down the best you can. You don't want to go near your stitches, you just want to take off some of this excess bulk. And then once we've got round to there, we can deal with the sides. So now, this is where the scary bit is. You need to get close to them stitches, but not that close that your purse is going to fall apart. So, but you just need to chop off that bulk. So that's quite a lot of bulk that you'd have had to get through your machine. Same here, close enough, but not too close. And there's all that chunky out of the way. So now just ready to turn it through. Just going to start it off with the lining. This is a bit more fiddly because it's such a small project. It's a lovely one, is this? It reminds me of my grandma, because my grandma used to make things like this. Just keep pushing. It'll go. There we are. Need to get it through the zip. Oh, and another thing, when you're giving away purses, apparently you have to give money in it, or it's not lucky or something. So you have to remember to, I don't know if it's a bit of silver or what it is, you have to put some money in a purse. Now we're ready to just push those corners out. Look at that. So happy with that. And then the other side. Really happy with that as well. And if you had your iron now, you could really make it look professional. Get those seams pushed out. Because we didn't push the seams out on the lining, it's going to be so easy to push back in. Can you see they're just there? So we don't need to worry about them. So now we're just going to finish off our lining. And this is where you could either hand stitch it, if you're good at hand stitching, or use a matching thread if you can. Would look very professional on your sewing machine. I'm going to have to stitch mine with the thread I've got. So just going to start it off. Not quite caught it there. There we are. So we're going on a tiny bit of a curve, and we want to do a back stitch. Make sure you've got the right, yes, I've got the right stitch length. Try to get near the edge, but not so near the edge that you're not catching the front and the back. Take that out, chop off my threads, and it pops in really easy. Like I said, we didn't turn the corners out. That had a nice press, and that'd be wonderful. So there, you can see how lovely and tight inside the purse it is, especially once it's pressed. Zips up beautifully. Tabs are all in perfect, so's the zip. And that's a lovely coin purse.